わさびアニメすごいですね。
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our next live Twitch stream broadcast of Convention Nerds. We were having an argument in the pre-production meeting, episode 12, further proving the point that neither Ken nor I could count because he thought it was 10, I thought it was 11. For those of you who've never seen the show before, quick recap: Convention Nerds is our annual, or not annual.
Wow. Woo!
Thank you. We do it once a year.
That's it.
That's why
Just
it takes
once.
so long. Once a weekly show where we talk to owners, promoters of pop culture events. Currently, we used to say across North America. A couple episodes we expanded to Cuba, so now we get to say around the world. And especially in light of the past year with COVID, different conversations about approaches to running shows, history of shows. Just so we can all learn together and hopefully find what we're stepping into 2021. I got into this because in 2001, I started an anime club called Wasabi Anime in order to impress a girl. And that wound up turning into Green Mustard Entertainment. We're a company now that uses the Wasabi Anime brand to appear at a number of shows like the Fan Expo, MegaCon, Gen Con, shows like that. Plus, we own our own shows like Fandom PDX in Portland and WasabiCon and InvaderCon, the Invader Zim show. And during that time, I was going to a local convention that I got involved with in Orlando, Florida, called JCon, the Japanese Animation Convention, run by a guy, Ken Joey Snack Pants Nabby, my co-host. And he and I met the day I showed up at his convention, sat down in the back row of a Transformers panel that he and the staff were hosting, and proceeded to be that guy correcting them every other thing they said for the panel. We kept in touch, and now we're here co-hosting. So I'll let Ken a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, that was 20 years ago, Tom. Yeah.
Shut up.
September of 2000 when that event happened. But yeah, Tom and I have been doing this for quite a while.
Since the turn of the century.
The century, exactly. Found a bin of those old T-shirts out there. Let's just say I don't fit into an adult medium any longer. But yeah, we've been doing this for quite a while. We looped Tom into helping us do stuff for JCon, and then went on to do other bigger and better things, one could say. But yeah, Tom does it for a living, and I just help a lot. So
yeah. So this week, each week we've gone to a different state, different province. Unusual kind of middle section in the United States. Not truly a state, one of our territories. Washington, D.C. is home to a very large event.
Tom, I'm sending you back to geography. Cuba's in North America, and DC is a district. It's not a territory. Jeez, you're killing me here.
But we can't
count to Florida schools.
Does Cuba actually count as North America?
Yes, I went to go look it up. Yes, it's
oh, you went to go look it up.
So I was like, I think I'm right on this.
Okay. All right. Well, somebody will correct us, I'm sure, in the chat if we're wrong. So, so I retract.
Internet always corrects us. Yeah.
But probably the most audacious name of a convention to date, Awesome Con, self-proclaimed being the Awesome Con. We are joined by both Lauren and Kelly, and we'll let you guys introduce yourselves one at a time. Lauren, if you want to start, tell us a little bit about yourself and involvement, and then go to Kelly, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Lauren. I am the director of marketing for Awesome Con. I joined LeftField, 4 years ago. I started working on our classic auto show. I worked on Playfair while I was working for LeftField, and I have now made it to our comics portfolio. I do a little bit on our anime portfolio. So quite the run of consumer enthusiast events, and it's super fun. So excited to be here tonight.
Awesome. No pun intended.
You say it a lot when you work on Awesome.
That's a quarter in the jar, my friend.
Yeah.
In the jar.
Like that's is that like an issue with the like anytime I say, oh, that's awesome. Oh wait, never mind.
When you're planning Awesome Con, you say it a lot.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
It's just not a con in the office. It's Awesome Con all the time. Don't abbreviate it. Don't.
It's always awesome.
It's always awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we have Kelly.
Great. Hi. Yes. So I'm Kelly, and I am the president of LeftField Media. And LeftField Media is the parent company of Awesome Con. along with Anime NYC, Rose City Comic Con, the new Anime Frontier, and we're part of the Clarion Events company as well. So I get to have the fun of working with a great, incredible team that makes all the magic happen.
Okay.
And everything.
Well, let's and you kind of started off on a great direction I want to talk about, which was one of the reasons of bringing you guys on the show. So what a lot of people in the mainstream don't know, just casual fans, or vernacular we use at Wasabi Anime is we call them norms. The norms don't realize is everybody goes to a local Comic Con or local pop culture show. In any market, there's your toy show, your large show, your regional anime show, things of that nature. But what's not common knowledge is that there are a number of conglomerates that exist that kind of have all these under an umbrella. Now, we've mentioned in the past on the show, for example, Wasabi Anime is contracted by a company called Informa Pop Culture, which is part of Informa. And we are, just like you just described, part of a division that specializes in the popular culture events. Fan Expos, Calgary Expo, MegaCon are all owned by the same company in Canada. Reed Pop, for example, is another good one. And they have a whole stable of shows. So what's interesting is, Left Field has how many pop culture shows do you guys have in your portfolio right now?
Right now,
Four at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you could take me back, like, how did Left Field start? And then how did Left Field decide to get into the pop culture market?
Yeah. So Left Field started, let's see, my son's in 6th grade now. So it's almost 6 years ago when we started Left Field. And Left Field was started by Greg Topalian. And Greg Topalian and I were part of the original team that created New York Comic Con for Reed before there was a thing called Reed Pop back in, I think, what did we just look up? It's 2006. It's a long time ago now. It's many years ago. And that became the beginning of what did become Reed Pop. And after many years went by, Greg had always thought about doing something on his own enterprise, and called me up one day and said, "Hey, I was thinking about starting this company. Would you help me? Would you do this with me?" Sure, no problem. That sounds great. Well,
Sucker.
No, that's what I say now. Maybe like 10 hours a week or something like that. Sure. Within about 4 months, I think I was working 60 hours a week. But that was the beginning of LeftField Media. And we started with launching our own shows, some that are still around in some form and some that are not. But we had some investors to help us get started. And quickly after our first year, we had the opportunity to partner with a gentleman named Ben Penrod, who was the original founder of AwesomeCon. And at that point, AwesomeCon was entering in its 4th year and could use some support from some more seasoned professionals in the event space who've had experience growing events from nothing to much larger scale. So we kind of jumped in and really hit it off right away with Ben and formed a nice partnership to help grow AwesomeCon to where we are now. And as we started growing, we started launching some more of our own shows and acquiring some other businesses under the brand of Left Field. And excitingly enough, Left Field was then also acquired by Clarion Events, which is one of the largest trade show companies globally at this point. So we are now their enthusiast division of fan-based events. And as Laura mentioned, we've had things like classic auto shows and other things like that within our portfolio as well. So it's just kind of grown as like the snowball that keeps rolling downhill or uphill in some ways. During COVID times, it rolls all over the place.
I find it hilarious listening to both you and Lauren Kelly, using the professional jargon of the convention and event space. Because I was with Disney for a number of years, and at the tail end of my Disney career, I ended up working with the event coordination for the telecommunications end of the company. And when I used to try to make Tom use those proper terms regarding convention space and how conventions were run in 2000, he would just look at me funny going, "Ken, we don't need to talk like that."
Well,
and now he is.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem. What Ken, the part of the story that Ken's not sharing is Ken's background is Disney. So he's legacy, like his father's a Disney legend. Like he worked in the theme parks in Orlando, Florida. I was part of the early crew and opened and helped develop things over at Universal Studios down the street. So unbeknownst to me, when I was a young man stepping into this industry and learning, because I wound up becoming the entertainment coordinator and opening City Walk there, they were purposely creating jargon that was the opposite of anything people said at Disney. So it's like, oh, well, if they're cast members, then we're this, and everything had to be we can't say the same term as Disney. So as Ken was using, Disney was just using standardized terminology. We were like, we have to come up with another phrase so it doesn't sound like Disney. And so at this point, I'm like, what are you talking about, man? We don't talk at Universal. We call it this, and we're professionals there. And it took me years to realize that Universal was just making shit up.
The kings are making shit up. So
yes. So, and you brought up a good point, which was just getting back to the whole concept of these large companies. So, you said like you're with Clarion. Is LeftField is the like pop culture division more or less of Clarion, and Informa, when I refer to Informa, Fan Expo HQ is that division, but Informa has its hand in all these other things, and Reed being the best example, Reed Exhibitions only stepped into the pop culture circuit. So
can you name any more of their competitors while you're at it, Tom?
It's all right.
Okay.
I think that's it. Honestly, though, but that's the point. We're hitting the level, and that's almost why I'm talking about it. Is you have Coke and you have Pepsi, and then you have everybody else, and we're starting to see these large companies that are seeing, and it's such a weird thing. Ken and I date back to my first con I ever went to was a Star Trek con in 1980, and was going to Star Trek cons in the 90s, and Ken was going to anime cons, and just saying that, hey, this is our casual hobby, is now, this is a huge business and industry that we're a part of. So getting back to you guys, so Clarion is the parent company for the LeftField division, which is your pop culture, and it's, correct me if I'm wrong, it's AwesomeCon, Anime NYC, the soon to launch Anime Frontier, and Rose City Comic Con, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And AwesomeCon's kind of like, I guess would be like kind of your legacy show, your crown jewel type of piece. In
the comic space, Anime NYC is also, they're all super important in their own way and in their own regionality. But AwesomeCon right now has the largest number of ticket holders throughout the course of a weekend. But Anime NYC is growing so fast; it's only in its third year. We'll see what happens there.
Oh yeah, no, it's Peter's been trying to get me to go, and it's only so many times I can get on a plane to New York in a year. What
it's worth
how
it.
many
now you're gonna get pressure from Peter and me too, so
I will. Hey, pandemic ends, I will find a way.
It can end.
What's the so AwesomeCon, last AwesomeCon was 2019. How many attendees did you guys have?
Just about 70,000.
Okay, is that unique or turnstile?
Okay. Next question.
That, we'll be honest about that. Like, and that's gone way back to the first New York Comic Con days when we're trying to figure out that fire marshal rule. How many can we fit in this space as they're trying to shut us down? It's
Tom and I were big proponents of the turnstile mentality because we had come from Disney and Universal, and trying to explain to somebody that one person each day, that's an individual each day. But when we were dealing with individuals that had just started and their first time in the convention space was a pop culture or a homegrown comic book convention, they were just worried about how many tickets they were selling. If they were selling a weekend ticket, it was one head. So that's where the back and forth came about. And Florida was a battleground for what is the true number the convention had.
If I bought my Disney resort pass for 5 days, I'm not one pass. I'm 5 people because I'm going to a resort 5 days. So 70,000, and it's Awesome's a 3-day or a 4-day?
3-day.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so you have 3 days, 70,000 people come through the turnstiles throughout the weekend. What would you say compared to the other, pop culture event brands that are out there? What makes AwesomeCon different, better, interesting compared to the standards like San Diego, New York, etc.?
Yeah, well, first it's awesome. So
Okay.
no,
Good branding.
walk into
Good
that one.
Let's
branding.
start there. But beyond that, AwesomeCon, Ben is really smart. He still is. He's still very smart. But when he named it, this is a really smart move of thinking about AwesomeCon is about fandom, right? It's about whatever you define as your fandom to be. So as long as it's awesome, it's there. So it's about how you define awesome, which has given us a great leeway and breadth to be able to pull everything together under one tent. And we're super fortunate of being in Washington, D.C., the district of Washington, D.C., because it is...
Wait, not the territory? My bad.
Not the territory, no, district of Washington, D.C. Because
they pay taxes, Tom.
It is such an epicenter for science and technology that we are able to do this incredible science fair along with it within our walls of AwesomeCon, that we've had some incredible content. NASA is a huge supporter of our events and does a lot of programming within AwesomeCon. We have astronauts and astrophysicists and all sorts of really cool geeky things come together of like the science behind science fiction happening live under our tent, which is something that's really, really cool. That you really can't replicate anywhere else, just because the nature of what you have at your disposal right there in DC. Mm-hmm. Other things about AwesomeCon that help to make us really unique are the family friendly aspects of what we have at AwesomeCon. Probably like many of you, I've been to many conventions where I'm like, I cannot bring my children here, right? They can't see this aisle, they can't see that aisle. And even though we have plenty of content that appeals to all age ranges, we do make sure that we are also very family friendly. We do have evening programming for the 18 plus, but we're carding at the doors and keeping that very separate. And one of the things, and Lauren has been really critical in like spearheading all of this, has been our AwesomeCon Junior. And Lauren, I don't know if you want to just talk a little bit about what that is, because it's a really magical part about AwesomeCon that's kind of grown over the years.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So AwesomeCon Junior is the place on the show floor where families can go, and it's all about play, being together. We've got a stage there that's dedicated all to kids programming. So you can take your kid there; they're going to enjoy it. We've got like different costume characters, activities for the kids, so it really makes it a fun, family-friendly activity spot. Mm-hmm. You can go and do the things, see the guests you want to see with your family, and then hit up AwesomeCon Junior. You can bring your kids one of the days, go to AwesomeCon Junior, and then they've experienced the con, and you can come back the other days. Just for the adults, it makes it really doable for a family.
So you guys gear heavily into kind of the family friendly demographics. You're looking for parents and kids. Is that just an AwesomeCon specific thing, or do you try to do that across the board in the LeftField stable of shows?
More so in AwesomeCon and Rose City Comic-Con. So more within our Comic-Con portfolios.
Okay, because you got what I was going to ask, which is there's that bleed over with anime that's a tricky, slippery slope, yes. And that's a hard thing to regulate, to do a pure family friendly environment, because so much of it is a PG-13, TV-14 genre. But so I'm assuming that like anime type programming is probably minimal at an AwesomeCon. You have 2 anime shows anyway, but you have if you're talking family friendly, I'm assuming superheroes, the hits, cartoons, things like that. Now you say you have a family friendly area. Is it in the exhibitors hall? Is where you're setting this thing up?
Yeah.
And
so there's vendors right there. There's a stage. The vendors usually have some sort of activity or engagement for the kids. So it's right there on the floor.
Okay. And how many vendors do you guys typically have at Awesome?
Jeez. Vendors?
And we're going to need you to name
the Gales Room coordinator is the only person that ever knows that number, Tom. You couldn't name the number of vendors you had at the last WasabiCon, I bet.
Danielle's here, so I could whisper in my ear.
I'm going to say there's probably about 200 vendors, about 250, 300 artists.
Okay. That's a huge exhibitors hall.
I think that's right.
Yes. It's a huge exhibitor hall.
Oh my God. Okay. Because that's my next question was,
Well, as Tom mentioned, that whole anime piece, I always said that there's no way I'm ever going to be able to run for public office because there's no way I'd be able to explain the Yaoi PJ party to
that's
a
a
member
little
of the
challenge.
press in a format that didn't sound bad. That's always been a
Yeah.
challenge with trying to create that environment, especially the anime demo. You get that tween demo that doesn't want to deal with the youngers, and the parents sort of just want to have a drop off and leave mentality. So I really appreciate, as a father of a 5-year-old, that type of environment that gives them something to do versus just having to drag them around to try to see everybody. The last time my kid had fun at conventions when she got to meet Zach Levi, because she thought that he was the greatest thing ever because he was Shazam.
Yeah.
And so going back, so what sort of things do you say? And again, just like Ken described, younger demographic is a challenge to keep engaged in a room full of. Here, I'm going to beat the dead horse. Awesome. Like what things
we say embrace it, so say it as many times as you want. It's okay.
Oh, okay. What key things have you seen in your family area that have kind of kept the engagement going, do you think?
So the costume characters are a huge favorite. So like those are the guests for the kids, right? The Trolls characters, the PJ Masks characters. We work with lots of cosplay groups that dress up as like a lot of superheroes and the Disney princesses, and that's the guest for the kid. So that is always a huge favorite of AwesomeCon Junior. We do a kids costume parade. So that's, super fun too. Obviously cosplay is a huge part of Comic-Cons. And so that allows them to dress up and be a part of it. We have some video gaming stations that are age appropriate. Of course, that's great for like, the 7 to 9 age. We encourage each vendor to have some sort of activity in their booth. So we had like Detective Pikachu, where they had this scene where you could take a picture with, like within the scene, just different things like that. To
make and take kind of stuff.
Yeah. To, like DreamWorks had some really cool setups where they had games and you could win prizes. Takeaways, of course, the kids always love like the little takeaways that they can get from all the booths. What else? I'm trying to think. We have an animal show.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true. The animal shows are good.
Which is my favorite.
I think one
playing the animal show.
So we work with the National Wildlife Federation, and they bring in live animals like an alligator, an owl, a snake. They've brought in like, they're not raccoons, but similar to that. And the message is that these animals are in the wild and they're safe, but you should respect their space. And, we're showing you they're safe, but also teaching the lesson of don't approach them. We had, was it like a hawk or something at one of our shows last year?
Yeah.
And the hawk actually flew like into the convention center. So it was cool. They had it like, on they had it controlled, but just stuff like that it's also different. Like you wouldn't think of an animal show at a Comic-Con, but that's the family friendly piece of it. And that is probably like one of the biggest pieces of content on our kids' stage. So
and one of the things that I also think is really cool in the family, the kids area and the junior area, is a lot of our comic artists and invited guests will take turns in rotations doing sketches complimentary just in the children's zone. So giving which is really cool. And some will do some drawing art lessons as well, little sketch classes, and but it's all really small and intimate. So they're small moments, so they become really intimate and personal time, which is very cool and really unique. And it also opens, the younger demographics' eyes to the fact that these cartoons are actually created by somebody. These comics are actually created by somebody. And, this is a path that you could follow, or you can just appreciate the art either way, which is fun.
But it just sounds, and again, just the more you're describing the work that's going into this one section, we look at all of our shows and we work with a number of shows, and each show carries its own different demographic. Anime shows, obviously, if it's a pure anime show, we're looking for, teen to college age. We do contract work for Gen Con. And where we run the anime section, the predominant demographic in Gen Con is male, single, 40s, works in the tech sector. So it sounds like AwesomeCon is really just trying to focus on, hey, can we get families to come to our show? Because I'm assuming if you're putting that much time into the kids area, the goal is, obviously parents, get the parents in and get them to do something with their families more than just the masses of anybody. It sounds like there's a lot more focus there, which is kind of nice. Again, you got two guys. You're talking to two guys who came from a theme park background,
Right.
so
Right.
we're always looking at that as a creating more of a to use the term inclusive environment, because let's face it, sometimes just coming from the anime background, parents are intimidated by that.
Well,
it's
and Tom, we started this whole thing let's date ourselves. I mean, we did the first JCon was in 2000. I was in my mid 20s when we started JCon. And as JCon got older and older and older, I was now, before it was, I was the young adult, and now I'm the creepy old guy running the anime convention. And it's like, okay, I was out there trying to actually we go out and see the parents when they were sitting outside the convention space, because you can tell the parent, it's a guy sitting there with the book, because no one had good cell phones back then, with the book reading and trying to engage and make sure they know and they feel safe and they felt comfortable being there. Because honestly, you bring in your 16-year-old daughter and her 4 friends, and they're all in their costumes, and they go to opening ceremonies and they see a bunch of, late 20, early 30 somethings up there talking about how great the show is. I would start scratching my head too, going, exactly what is this?
Oh, no. Ken's family-friendly moment at a con is Gen Con. We were there operating and doing programming when My Little Pony Friendship is Magic was hitting its peak. And we were doing such successful My Little Pony related programming, like Paint Your Own Pony workshops, all the stuff that we're designing the same way you guys described, which is for our mainstream.
Right.
And all of the bronies who were there for Gen Con converged into our panels. And we're like, hey, let's do a My Little Pony history panel. And we're talking about, let's have a conversation about going, here's when we were in the kids' 80s and go forward. And suddenly it's packed with men in their 20s and 30s. And we're like, yeah, just so you know, and Ken point blank says, you guys are not the demographic Hasbro's going for.
They were complaining about Equestria girls. They're like, oh, we don't like Equestria girls. Yeah. And then one guy in the corner is like, well, my daughter likes Equestria girls. I'm like, oh, how old is your daughter? She's 6. A 6-year-old enjoys Equestria girls. Guess what, guys? That's a demographic they're looking for. They're not looking for you guys. They're looking for her.
Right.
That's exactly, you got to realize that the demo. Now, sometimes you get some crossover, but sometimes it's, the fandom isn't exactly what you want to have, especially if you're pushing a brand.
Right.
And, what is part of that brand? And, who's expecting, things change. Kelly, when you had your child, you probably had a completely different approach to the fandom than you had before, and you were able to make different decisions, had different scope of things.
Absolutely. Our whole team is probably so sick of me using my children as examples of everything, of like sensitizing them. Well, they would like this or they wouldn't like that, and it changes your lens completely.
Yes.
It does. And now mine are getting older, and so my lens is starting to change again. So I count on somebody like Lauren, whose kids are still younger, to keep my lens, keep my perspective.
Need somebody to keep things grounded.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's the fun part about dealing with the anime industry is I have to explain to my friends that I don't have children. I have a fur kid, but I had talked to my friends who now have their kids that are teenagers, and they're like, "My kid is blah blah blah," and I'm like, "Oh, this is all they're talking about is this." They're like, "How do you know that?" I'm like, "It's technically my job to be clean." Like, I have to know that. Like, I knew what TikTok was before you did. It's my job. So it's, having to speak on that language, all of us as promoters are always looking at the global picture of our show. So getting back to the Awesome Con, it sounds very interesting that you guys are, we've talked to different styles of shows so far, and you guys literally are sound like you're leaning heavily towards what we'd say is a theme park format. It's here's the thing, we've got a lot for the kids. We want to make sure all the families can have a good But swinging to that, so let's shift the conversation a bit. The global conversation was because, hey, we're there's corporate overlords and we're doing the pop culture division, but that has been, and I've said this in other conversations and in interviews I've done in media, we're experiencing, and this is a quote I've used, and it's going to lead back into, I want to ask you guys about your virtual piece here, is when COVID-19 started hitting in earnest around March and April. I had a number of conversations. I did interviews for newspapers in Japan because they were immediately interested in how it was going to impact the anime con circuit. And the harsh statement I made, and I stuck with it, is that I feel we're still in the middle of seeing Darwinism in real time. And what that is we have, in North America, one of the divisions, we own a company called Talent for Cons that runs actors, and I put them on a research project of how many pop culture events actually are happening. So we have all this data now. And in 2019, there were 1,400 plus events that could be considered a pop culture event, whether it be a toy show or it be a Comic Con. And out of those 1,400, we're going to see Darwinism. And there's three things that happen. One, the bottom third just were in no way, shape, or form prepared for this in the first place. Ken and I would quietly make,
or they were teetering
shows.
They were teetering on bankruptcy in the first place.
We would see certain shows in certain markets go,
inertia.
Hey, due to COVID-19, we've canceled, and we're quietly going,
you should have canceled anyway.
You should have canceled last year, but this was your final reason to do so. And then you have your other end of the spectrum, which is the left fields, the Fan Expo HQs and Read Pops, that, hey, there's at least a corporate umbrella above us to help stabilize. It's not a perfect system, but it increases the odds. And then we have kind of the middle shows, which are your independent, solo anime cons, Comic Cons, that, and that's the Darwinism swing right there, is how are they adapting? Well, the good news is for the top end of that spectrum, left field, for example, you guys have some of the resources to be able to look at how to pivot, which kind of brings to the next part of the conversation, which is when COVID-19 hit you guys and, you're like, hey, we have a huge show we do every year with 70,000 people coming up. What was the plan, or how was the plan, or how have you guys coped with that now?
There's a lot of drinking. That was part of the coping. This has been one of the wildest things that probably many of us have ever experienced, especially in the event space. So AwesomeCon was scheduled the first weekend in May, and this was going down very quickly, and you wanted to be able to. We knew we couldn't run, right? We knew that this was going to that place of no matter what, by May, we're not going to be in a safe place to run. But we also needed to have the plan in place of what would come next. And there were a lot of challenges on figuring out that plan because of the convention centers, right?
Right.
They're all scrambling and trying to shift their dates. And let's be honest, we love our convention centers that we work with. They're very good to us, but the consumer event business is not their biggest book of business. Right. And they have to take care of their shows that bring millions and millions of dollars into the cities with all the hotel rooms, because we don't have that kind of massive hotel room consumption that a B2B show that takes up the whole convention center will. So there was a lot of waiting and, okay, we think we're going to be able to give you this date. Oh, no, sorry, we can't. Don't announce that. We're going to give you this date. No. And it was like every day I was like, can we talk now? Can we do something now to share with our fans what we were going to do?
Well, let me cut in and pause with you real quick. Did you deal with, because this is something we saw a lot of dealing with, and we dealt with some of our shows too, is during that decision process, again, the norms and the mainstream and our fans don't all know about that. All they know is, hey, why haven't you canceled? You're irresponsible. Yes. Did you guys, how much backlash? Because you're right on the cusp if you were in May. Did you guys get a lot of backlash on that of not immediately doing it, or how tough was that for you guys?
Let's see. We did get some. I think what we did right is we were very honest up front of here's what we're waiting for. We have news that we want to share. We're waiting for one more piece. I would say we probably had a window of about 48 hours where it was the toughest in terms of the backlash, people looking for answers, and we're like, we're just waiting for this one more piece. Please give us this one more piece. And like us calling convention center, like, listen, we have got to go today. I cannot do this to our fans. Like, they care. This is important to them, and we have to do something. And have to share with them what's about to happen, because a lot of them, we had their money and their tickets, right? And there were also stories about other conventions keeping their money and not giving refunds back. So everyone got really heightened and nervous. And fortunately, we are in the position where we can be very open, honest, and transparent with everybody and take care of them the right way. And I understand that some people had other challenges where all the cash was tied up in the building. They couldn't get their money back from the venues. And like, there's some legitimate reasons out there for why that happened. And so we just were very communicative very quickly and very early about what was going on.
Now, Kelly, one of the things we talked about with LA Comic Con when they were on an earlier show was the politics of the situation. LA, they were dealing with the city, they're dealing with the county, they're dealing with the state, and of course, they're elected officials. Now, you guys are in the District of Columbia. Only the mayor is elected. Everybody else is appointed, so they're not really beholden to the citizenry of the operation. So you sort of have a more of a what I would think would be a more detached approach to what was going on. How was the politics of dealing with the district itself and the city over and beyond everything else that you're having to deal with?
Amazing.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Really?
I know. Yes.
I mean, Tom's got some great stories about Jacksonville because.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the simple one is, the biggest challenge we had, and we can be, and again, it's easy to be public afterwards, but the lead up was always the hard challenge of trying to tell and connect with our fans with the guys, we hear you. Guys, we are working on this. It's not on deaf ears, but please, we need time. And our biggest challenge in the city of Jacksonville, where we own one of our shows in Florida, was I covered a show that was in March and decided to push through and still happen in June. And it shouldn't have happened, but it was at the fairgrounds. And once they happened, the city, even though everything was like, hey, we're locked down, we probably shouldn't do this, they were teetering, and we were having a safe enough conversation of, hey, let's move our show from October 2020 to 2021. Then the Republican National Convention announced that
they're going to be in Jacksonville,
Florida.
And they can be here. Why can't you?
And that was literally the answer of the, hey, we might agree with you. And yeah, we already had, because in March we came up with that backup plan. We had a backup plan, and we talked about it in March and back then, 10 years ago, in March of 2020, it was it won't be that bad. We'll be fine by then. And then we had the conversation, but it was literally we could not, and they could not do anything for us as long as the RNC was happening. And I don't know if you recall, it literally just canceled, I think 2 weeks before it was supposed to happen.
Right.
And until that happened, we were stuck because we're having to communicate. We had tickets sold. Our vendors room is sold out. We're like, guys, we're not ignoring you. So yeah, it's a big challenge, but
it is.
Dealing with locally with our convention center government was tricky, but I'm not gonna lie, it's a little shocking that DC was really that easy to work with.
Yeah, they really were. And this is not me like trying to butter them up because we might need some more help from them in the future or anything like that. They were truly amazing. It never became an issue. They immediately, it was all about trying to find where was the best, safest time for us to run next. And they bent over backwards to try to help us out and try to figure it all out. At no point was there any moment of them trying to force us to run or trying to find any loopholes to hold anything to our heads. I think they also know how much they appreciate the AwesomeCon fan base, and they really do look at AwesomeCon as something very positive for the city. And we have a really close relationship with the Visitors Bureau there too. So they're so supportive. We do so many things with different restaurants and different community groups that they want to make sure that we're coming back and happy. And they knew if they held our feet to the fire and tried to force us to run, one, we could be caught having a very dangerous situation. But the economics of trying to do that safely in that convention center, who could afford to do that in those ways under the terms that are out there? it's unbelievable the
Well,
cost.
we encourage you to go back and watch our LA.
Yeah, the LA one,
episode.
those
They
guys
came up
had
with
it.
some
They had it
really
going.
crazy stuff.
I was
It
really
cool.
shocked. It
Yeah.
was Sacramento that shut them down, not LA. But they
Yeah.
spent some real time and effort, and when talking through the plan, I was quite impressed. But Kelly, you had mentioned you've got a good partnership with the Visitor
Mhm.
Bureau. Now, when much like Orlando, when you think about going to DC, it's not thinking about going to a convention. How do they? Is it something an alternate thing for somebody to do when coming to DC? Or are they trying? It just seems like there's so many other things to do.
Well, let me
Why
prologue
promote
Ken's
a convention?
question.
I guess.
Let me prologue Ken's question with this question.
Yeah.
Demographically, how many people are actually from DC, and how many people come from the surrounding states?
Exactly.
Good point.
It's exactly right. It's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Because I don't think that many people live in DC proper. There's a population there, but the
Mhm.
goal is to draw the people, obviously, from Virginia and all around Maryland to come into it. So you're trying to get those dollars from the other states
Yeah.
into that district.
Yeah, 100% correct. And we pull from all around. We pull from significantly, every convention can say, we pull somebody from all 50 states and 12 European countries. Great. We all do. It's like one here, one there, one there.
Yeah.
We have a huge amount of people who actually come from the Texas area, South Carolina, North Carolina, coming right up to the show. Like there is a very large densities from those areas as well.
Like South Carolina,
cool.
North Carolina makes sense. Texas is what the hell? That's a drive.
I know.
Weird.
Yep. So
okay,
it's cool. So it's cool. It's a good thing for us. And because we work so closely with the convention center, they're aware of all those demographics and those stats as well.
Okay.
They also pay a lot. Very smart of them. They pay a lot of attention to things beyond just room nights, which not every visitor bureau does.
What?
They look at Airbnb. They look at restaurant reports from the weeks. They look where it used to be. The conversation used to be, all right, well, how many hotel nights are you taking?
Right, exactly. That's how it always is.
That was the question. That was the conversation. It's not. That's not the critical factor anymore for DC, and which is really progressive of them for a business like ours.
Yeah,
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, only other city I can speak to that I know does that was Gen Con and Visit Indy, because hotel rooms quit being the problem for them. It's a problem because they don't have enough.
Right.
Now they were looking at other spikes in revenue to the point that their airport sets up a section when you land to play tabletop games while waiting your friends' planes to get there.
It's amazing.
Which is it's great. I love that.
Awesome.
So going back to your narrative then, so the city was a lot easier. You wound up making the decision. It was supposed to happen in May. So with the original plan, I think if I remember correctly, was to move from May to an alternate date.
It was, we were December, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
December 3rd through the 5th.
Yeah. Yeah.
This weekend.
Oh, wow. That seems like a lifetime ago.
And when we had those
technically, you should be loading in right now.
Well, when we had those dates, I just remember thinking, "There's no way we won't run. It's December." Like
that conversation every time. I'm like,
March.
If we're not going to do it in October, the whole damn country's going to be imploding. There won't be one in 2020.
I was like, if any show runs, it's going to be ours because we'll be the last one.
Right.
Yeah.
Go around.
Yeah. So when we realized, well, when we finally put the dates together, okay, we can't run in March. We had these December dates, and we're like, perfect, that'll be fine. Our community wanted something now, and we also knew that we wanted to figure out a way to support the vendor community because instantly, right? COVID hit. You know, our vendors from all these shows, so much of their livelihood is dependent on exhibiting at these shows.
Yeah.
They are not set up to do online businesses. Many are now, but they weren't all then, right? It was all about the purchases made at those shows. So we quickly got together with our team, came up with an idea to run a virtual con, right? Well, everybody's doing that. But we had the fortunate opportunity of being one of the early ones to do it just because of our timing of being in May and the event was supposed to be in March. And because of where we were in the life cycle of this COVID catastrophe that we're in, we were able to stop and take a stance and say, we are not going to charge for participation for our exhibitors. If they had already committed to our shows, We gave them the option to roll their money to future events and roll their commitments and contracts so that they could still lock in where they were and be a participant. We'll make their participation in our online virtual con completely free. And we worked with a couple celebrities who were going to do celebrity appearances, and they agreed that any money they made from their appearances they would donate as well. And so we set it up as a way to, one, directly give the vendors a place to make money without having to spend money, and also as a revenue generation to be donated to the Red Cross as well to help with immediate efforts of the financial strife that people are going through with COVID. So that was something that, because we were so early in the COVID cycle, that we were able to get the support. And like you said, because we have our corporate backing to be able to give even that extra, okay, you're doing the right thing. This is about the long term of the brand. Go ahead. We'll give you your support to do so, which I feel very fortunate.
So let me go back and ask for a detail there. So I'm a vendor at your show. The show canceled. And I'm like, cool, I'm staying on. How did I operate within your virtual event to make money?
Yeah. So Lauren, do you want to answer that? Because you were so much closer to that than I was.
So we had, we had a virtual show floor on our website. So we had their basically a link back to whatever their online shop was or whatever it was that they wanted to promote. And then we had space within Facebook. I believe it was through an event where you could, it was almost like a marketplace on Facebook. So you could connect with the vendors and the artists there. And then we dedicated all of our programming on Sunday it was a 3-day virtual event. So all day Sunday was panels from artists and vendors, just to give them time to highlight, whatever it was that they were working on or promoting at the time.
Okay. Now, and again, this is where the nuts and bolts of running pop culture events come into play. We have these conversations all the time with vendors and with, our celebrity guests of, hey, we want you to do this and do this panel, or come, if you're an artist in Artist Alley, why don't you do a panel about something? And they're like, why? I'm like, you call a spade here. You're doing an infomercial. You want people to come see you, to see you talk about your work, how talented you are, the things that you do. And then when you're done, and I'm in the exhibitors hall, please come see me. So that format actually sounds pretty smart in a virtual standpoint of, hey guys, you're a vendor, you're an exhibitor, or you're an artist. Hey, why don't you host a presentation? And in the end, be like, hey, by the way, I'm in the virtual exhibitors. Come by and I can do a sketch for you, or here's what I have on sale, or I showed you how this was done. Come buy it from me, et cetera, et cetera. So that's really neat. So did you get a lot of positive feedback?
Actually we did get a lot of positive feedback from our vendors and from the community for making it available. But was it a perfect setup for all the vendors to be able to sell and monetize that way? No, it's not. And there hasn't been any perfect scenario yet. And
no, there hasn't.
It's really challenging. And we were very early, like I said, in that cycle of these virtual events coming on. So we were like, let's wing it. Let's try it. We've got to try something. We've got to do something and try it and put it out there, because it was like completely uncharted territory at that point.
Well, and we were making that statement back when we thought things were going to open earlier, and we're still having that conversation now. Is we've had a couple of straggling events attempt to operate within COVID, but there's going to be the first large scale event, which hasn't happened yet, post COVID, and when that happens, it's going to be full of mistakes, and we all know it as professionals. Fans won't understand as much, but as professionals, we're like, I can see how that happened, or like I said, even when you just described it, I'm like, oh, that sounds flawless, but application and theory are two different things. Right. So you guys sound like you tried to do something pretty creative and innovative. Again, you're at the early learning curve with all of us at the same time of, well, this is just happening. Let's try this. And we've all learned since then. We talked to a show called MomoCon. And Stuckey has watched like 60 virtual events now. Yeah. And we've done, I haven't gone that hardcore, but I've watched just during lunch. And we've learned the key element is, hey, live engagement versus pre-recorded merits different numbers and results. And so we've seen kind of that shift in how we're all doing presentations, which kind of leads to, you guys have the show for AwesomeCon slated next year. But are you guys going to do another virtual in between there, or what are the next plans for AwesomeCon now?
Sure. Lauren, you want to go for it?
Yeah, sure. So we did AwesomeCon online, and then we've done a lot of virtual things since then. We've had smaller panels that we've done on Thursdays. We've had some themed months. We did something called Epic Quest. So kind of what we started to see is that people wanted something unique. We did phone calls with our fans and talked to them, and the one thing they're missing the most is being there in person and seeing each other. So obviously it's difficult to get people together during COVID on the internet. So Epic Quest was kind of a different, unique thing. It's like a virtual scavenger hunt. You could have your team that was in another household. So that was a really cool event. I think we'll probably look to do something like that again. But the thing we have coming up next is our short film festival at home. So every year we have a film festival at AwesomeCon. It's one of the most celebrated events. It's always, completely packed. The room is always packed during the festival. So we had planned to do it in December and, got like over 3,000 submissions. So we said, you know what, let's do it online. And it's great because obviously with virtual events, now you can reach outside of the people that normally come to your con. You can reach different states and areas of the country. So that's kind of cool. So we're excited to see how it does online. So that is coming up next week, actually. December 9th is when it kicks off. We have like an opening night where we'll do some clips and some previews of the films and do some behind the scenes videos that the filmmakers sent us. And then Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday night from 8 to 10, we'll have 2 hours of the films running each night. I think there's 7 different categories. So each night has like two or three categories that we run. And then on Sunday, we'll do a marathon of all the films again. And then we'll have an awards ceremony on Sunday night. So there's
including
also
an Audience Choice Award.
Yes, a People's Choice Award. So as you're watching throughout the weekend, you can vote for your favorite film. So yeah, I think that it's unique. It's something that's loved at our show. So we're looking forward to that. And I don't think it'll stop there. I think there'll be lots more that comes in 2021, but that's next on the agenda.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of this for us is the trial and error. Like, what's the feedback to the film festival? What's the feedback to our Epic Quest? What are the feedback that comes in from the panels? What's working for the vendors? What's working for our attendees? And trying to make sure we have the best balance. Throwing a bunch
of stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks at this point.
Yeah,
we are. That's to be totally truthful. We are, because this is completely new ground for everybody, and we want to make sure we just go with the things that really work, because all of these things are so time consuming for our team to put together. So we want to do the things that are the most meaningful for our fans first, because anything that's meaningful for our fans will then have the vendor support down the road, and so that's where we follow it.
Now, both Kelly, you and Lauren, you're both professionals in the event space. Tom's professional in the event space. This has to been a major pivot for your entire teams. I mean, just thinking of how you've been operating, how you've been planning stuff. I mean, what's been the pushback? I mean, honestly, for your teams, your directs, your subs, all those individuals, this is, hey, I've been doing this kind of event type of planning for X number of years, and now you're expecting me to become a subject matter expert on virtual. That wasn't in my job description.
Yeah. So
I'm curious to hear your answer, Kelly.
So within
don't forget, annual reviews are due at the end of the year too. So
and boss presents, Christmas cards. What do we got?
Exactly.
And I can say this with 100% honesty. Within LeftField, the pivot has been incredible. The team and everybody who's with LeftField, we've been working together for a pretty long time. Some of us have known each other for years prior to all of this, and have all become very close, as most of us do when we work together in the event space. And the pivot has been all about, how do we help each other? What can we do to make sure we're all surviving and uplifting each other? Within LeftField, nobody has said, yeah, this is not in my job description. Everybody comes to work thankful to be able to support each other every day. And I will say, honestly, I know that's not happening in all layers of different aspects of the events business. And
Oh, no.
we do, if I'm talking honestly about the global business, that is a challenge that we're facing. And we are looking at different job roles and, for example, the role of operations,
Yeah.
right? The logistics and the operations roles. We're lucky in left field that our operations team were so willing to pivot so quickly, and whatever I need to do, I'm going to learn it. I'm going to jump in. I'm going to figure it out. Where others have had more challenges and struggled, and we've had some turnover in other areas of our global business of people choosing to go into different industries because they're like, this is not what I signed up for. I didn't sign up to be a virtual host.
Yeah.
And so
it's and we've seen it across the board, not just in the extensions of our business as consumer shows. There are companies that I work with. I'm trying to tread carefully on how I convey this, but it's important that there are partnerships and companies that we work with that have roles within those companies that aren't consumer shows or media shows or events in the event space, that we partner with that have roles within their company to support us in the event space. And we've now seen those jobs either evolve or just be completely eliminated to the point that when our events come back, it's where do we pick up that conversation?
Yeah.
Well, this individual doesn't exist because that role no longer exists, because for a year it was unnecessary and it was eliminated, or it's been pivoted into a fully virtual capacity, but now I need my physical back. And how do we do so? We're also busy pivoting right now. It's hard to see, we're just pivoting to operate at this point. Once we come back, it's going to be a whole other reinterpretation of how we did things again, because, hey, I'm not picking up a phone and getting an answer to do A, B, and C like I used to. Now we've got to reinvent sort of our industry in some aspects, which leads to kind of, a good wrap up question, which is, what elements have you guys learned or gleaned doing the virtual experiences that you think will incorporate into your future live IRL events?
Ooh. One of the biggest learnings that I think we have is we were always so nervous about having something virtual simultaneously as a live event. Being concerned of, well, is that going to take people away from getting that ticket and really coming out? And now we're also understanding, because we have seen unique people attending some of our virtual events and our post-event survey, our post-virtual surveys that we're doing from these events that have never been to one of our physical events before. So we're seeing the opportunity to serve our markets in different ways. And that's something I'm really looking forward to seeing what our team comes up with of how do we manage that? How do we juggle that? What offerings are the right ones to try? And there's going to still be this wild, wild west mentality to it as we give it a shot. But we're okay with trying things. Some things won't work, and we'll just keep trying.
And I think that one phrase best encapsulates everything that everybody in our industry and everybody watching our industry needs to understand at this point, which is, this is, terra incognita at this point. We're throwing stuff against the wall. We're all trying things, and a lot of it's not going to work, and that is okay. It's not a systematic failure if something is tried and fails. It's a learning situation of, well, Ken and I joke about when Green Mustard started its own company, our very first convention that we ran a sci-fi con in 2007, and it was a huge hit to the tune of negative $30,000. But we didn't go, oh yeah, it hurt. But on the same note, it was wow, we just got a crash course on everything to never do again. Took that list and then built it into a successful company. And and now we're kind of in an environment right now of, I don't know, try this, see if it works. Oh, that sucked. Okay, that sucked. Don't do it again. But just because something doesn't work, and again, that's the best message from this whole conversation today, I think, is just because something didn't work doesn't mean it's a failure. It just means now we know what not to try, and let's come up with something new to try. And we're going to have to keep doing that in the age of COVID until we get back. And even when we do come back to post-COVID events world,
Yeah, and I hope that's a message that sticks with the team. We've always talked about it within Left Field, of this, just keep trying, and we don't blame anyone. Let's try new things. And I'm hoping the rate of trying has been so vigorous and new creative ideas coming out so fast that I really hope the team hangs on to that as we go, hopefully, back to physical events soon.
Yeah, one of the things I've had to do with my own personal teams, in my real world job, is inferring positive intent.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, no one is waking up and going, how can I shaft fandom today?
Right.
We are trying to do something that we think in our hearts is going to be positive, and that all the data we have up to that point, we think it's going to be positive. It's not until we actually try to do it are we going to really find out. And we're trying to get people to infer positive intent to people's actions and how we're doing things. It's a hard road to it's a hard road to go on, especially with our types of fans. They have a tendency to be very, very angry on the internet.
Fans are angry on the internet?
Enthusiastic.
Okay. Perfect. Well, we're going to wrap up. Lauren, since you're marketing, take us home. Give us the dates for the online film fest, and then for the next awesome con.
Yep. So the film fest starts next week. It's December 9th through the 13th. And then AwesomeCon 2021 is scheduled for August 20th through the 22nd. So, and that's at the Walter E. Washington Convention Center.
Excellent. Well, thank you both very much, Lauren and Kelly, giving us an hour of your time tonight. Like I said, Ken and I have enjoyed doing the show as much as, we share this online as kind of an informational resource so that we can continue the conversation, because this is an industry and it's a lot of great people who drive it. Right. Both of you sound like you've done amazing work. I'm very interested at some point getting myself to AwesomeCon to see your family section. And now Peter has another excuse to give me crap about Anime NYC. But definitely the whole time during the show, we've had all your social media website. Check out AwesomeCon online. If you're a fan of these events, support them virtually. Check out their film festival next weekend. And that was our 12th show. We've now completed a dozen. And thank you both. And we're going to say goodnight at this point. So everybody wave and say goodnight, because Danielle's going to fade us out.
Fade to black.